later, old Tommy boy, I said, blowing him a kiss. But you know I love ya. Tommy smiled. Tally, he hollered, and our secretary came back through the door. Swill, isn't it? She said, scooping up the mugs again with her manicured fingers and depositing them on a small table near the door. I just poured some for myself. I'll wake up extra early tomorrow to see if I can have Mrs. K walk me through it one more time. Do you think she will, Viv? Our landlady, Svetlana Kovalenko, had been extremely skeptical about having a debauched heiress move into one of her empty rooms, especially because that heiress looked like Tally Blackstone, a girl so beautiful she made Bacall look boring. Mrs. K has a teenage son, and she frets over him like a worried hen, and she was absolutely, positively sure she'd have to lock him in their basement apartment to keep him in line. But after a few days of carefully avoiding each other's paths, Tally showed herself to have a teasing, older sister-kid-brother relationship with Mrs. K's son Olix, who was only a year or so younger than she was. Not only did Tally not go for guys as broke as Olix, but she didn't go for guys at all. While Mrs. K, by and large, kept her nose out of her girls' dirty laundry, she didn't have to know that particular secret just yet. Though after nearly a decade of living under her roof, I knew Mrs. K was the kind to accept whatever the world threw her way and, even if she passed judgment, hold her tongue. Of course she will, I said. Tommy had expressly forbidden me from making another pot of coffee myself, or taking the time to show Tally all my tips and tricks for making what I considered a more than passable pot of coffee. It was sink or swim for her, in a deliberate way, he said, to make me stop feeling so much like the secretary, and more like a detective whose name was now painted on the door. Tally hopped up on the edge of Tommy's desk, dangling a fashionably shod foot in the wind. Half a dozen jewel-encrusted rings shone on fingers wrapped around the edge of the desk. Tommy knew he wasn't Tally's type, and she was too young for a man who claimed quite proudly to like a proper broad. So he didn't ogle the legs, but there was no way to keep his eyes off the rocks. If they were real, they cost hundreds, if not thousands. But the kicker with Tally was that there was a good chance they were nothing but glass. And much like the names of the girls she smooched, she wasn't going to tell. Oh, I meant to tell you. I think someone called with a case last night, she said offhand. I was going to ask when she had planned on telling us, but after a few months of her friendship, I had learned girls like Tally had a strange relationship to time and what was considered pressing information to share. An affair or divorce was at the top headline of morning news, but apparently potential paying work was pretty far beneath the fold. Someone called here, Tommy said. You were out the door by 4:59. No, at home, she added. It was a family friend. It wasn't unusual for Tally to tie up Mrs. K's line for hours a night, but even I noticed last evening that her chat session was long and involved a lot less gasping and giggling than her usual catch-ups with friends. But what was a social faux pas in our house didn't read the same way to old Tommy boy. Right now, there was no way to miss the dollar signs rolling through his eyes. Family friend in Tally Blackstone talk meant someone with at least one yacht. Okay, when can you get them in here? Tommy asked. Oh boy, he won't wake up until noon at the earliest, and it'll take at least an hour for him to drive in from Terrytown. Tally ticked off the hours on her fingers. 5 or 6? It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're telling me this family friend, who rang you up last night with a case pressing enough to consider summoning a private dick, can't be bothered to go into the city before 6 p.m. the next day? Tommy looked bewildered, but he was clicking his lighter open and shut, undoubtedly counting the pennies that would roll in from doing a job for anyone driving in from upstate. He had a symposium, Tally huffed. You can't possibly expect him to... And she shut her trap, remembering that she was now technically someone's employee, and decorum dictated she shouldn't mouth back. From the last few months of having her in my life, I knew that part of Tally's magic came from knowing the rules to every comma, dash, and period, and knowing when to break them. The other part of her je ne sais quoi was that she was richer than the state of Wyoming, even with the state of New York seizing most of her daddy's dollars in legal settlements and fines. She was rich on both her mama's and daddy's sides.